Good morning, everybody. My name is Barry Schwartz, and I'm going to talk to you about Google algorithm updates. I'm the SEO editor at Search Engine Land, and in this morning's keynote, I'm going to be talking to you about how Google algorithm updates have changed over the years, taking you through a 20-year history of Google algorithm updates, and what you guys need to prepare for when thinking about the future of Google algorithm updates. Because, as you know, Google is constantly updating. Your website should be currently and constantly updating. And with that, Google wants to rank the best quality websites going forward. So first, a little bit about me. If you don't know who I am, I make lots and lots of SEO videos, a weekly Friday video, vlog that is published all the time on Search Engine Land. You can subscribe if you want by going to youtube.com/rustybrick. Hit that subscribe button. I also been writing about SEO since I think 2003. And I've been writing at Search Engine Land since it started. Really happy to be doing this. I'm also the CEO of Rusty Brick, a web development firm in New York. My passion, as many of you guys know who've been reading my stuff for the past almost 2 decades, is around Google algorithm updates. I love covering them. I love looking at them and seeing what's going on and watching the SEO community chatter about it. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this keynote with you today at SMX Next. So stay tuned. So in this presentation, I'm going to go through a bunch of things. I'm going to first go through some of the older Google algorithm updates and then go through the newer ones. I'm going to take you through a timeline of them. I'm going to explain the difference between algorithm updates, index updates, refreshes, and stuff like that. I'm also going to talk about some of them confirmed and unconfirmed algorithm updates over the years. And you'll be able to see as I go through these Google algorithm updates where Google is going with these algorithm updates. It's not done just because that they have algorithm engineers working on a day-to-day basis. They're doing these for a reason. You'll be able to see the pattern of these algorithm updates, where Google's trying to go in order to get their search results to be the best they can. But first, some definitions and some history. So algorithm updates are when Google makes changes to how it ranks web pages. So their algorithm might say, hey, these are the weights they assign to different signals or scores, and that's how Google decides what pages should be ranked. It's an algorithm update. Refreshes are when new scores and pages are updated in the index. So 5 new pages get in the index, 2 pages drop out. Google updates different metrics in the index. And then index updates are basically how Google stores content or pages or URLs and other metrics in their index, in their database. And Google has done several index updates over the past years, make it faster, larger, quicker, smarter. And we'll discuss that as well. So let's talk a little bit about the early days of the Google updates. These were kind of called Google dances back in the early days. Some of the earliest ones that we've tracked were in like 2001 or 2002 or so. It was basically Google was on a cycle of updating their search results with new content, new scores, new weights at every 30-day cycle. They weren't able to do it in real time. It was something they did manually pushed every 30 days. So they would spend like 25 days getting new metrics, updating their data, and then going ahead and pushing it out to their various data centers. They had maybe, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of servers, and all those servers had to be updated with the new index, with the new data, with the new PageRank scores, and so forth. When that was done, you would see the SEO community go crazy because they would be tracking Google results across IP addresses. So Google would have hundreds of different IP addresses. All the different IP addresses had different data sets on it, and the rankings would fluctuate tremendously across all those data centers. And that's why it was called the Google Dance, because people would watch all these data centers populate with new metrics, new PageRank scores, new rankings, new pages, and so forth. And Google would be dancing. Everybody would be excited. What's going on? How am I going to rank for the next 30 days? Am I going to make money? Am I going to lose money? And that was why they called them Google Dances, because you would dance along with the Google search ranking updates. Back then, the most important metric back then was definitely PageRank. If you had a PageRank of 5, you do okay. If you had a PageRank of 8, 9, you would be gold. You could rank for any keyword you wanted to. So people would really carefully look at the PageRank scores across data centers. And then once their PageRank score was updated and they had a really good PageRank score, they would be able to actually update their content within that time and rank for any keyword they wanted to. It was a pretty fun time in the SEO industry, and it was just a blast to be part of. This all ended in 2003, and we'll get through these. We'll go through each update fairly quickly because I only have 30 minutes to go ahead and give you this presentation. All of these updates that I'm going to tell you about, almost all of them, especially in the early days, were named by a certain pattern. It was a way, basically all the Webmaster World forums, webmasterworld.com, an amazing forum. The SEO community spent a lot of time there in the old days, and they would name these updates throughout the years. And I think the first update didn't really have a name. It was in September 2002. Really didn't really know what was going on, but things were changing. And then there was the Boston update. That was named Boston because of SES Boston that happened in February 2003. Google's Matt Cutts actually confirmed that update. It was actually under the name Google Guy back then. Then there was some other updates, some target spammy links, some target other link changes. Google was getting smarter with like these Dominic update in May 2003. And the last Google Dance happened in like June 2003 or so. And after that, an update called Fritz or Bart, depending on who, or Google's name, I think was Bart. And then I think the SEO community called it Fritz, happened in July 2003. It was the end of the Google Dances. That was known, in other words, as Everflux. By Everflux, it means Google's constantly changing. It was not like you would have 30-day changes anymore. Google would literally update daily or more than daily, constantly update. The scores would get updated, the indexes would get updated, the page rank scores would be updated, all the weights would be updated, and you would have an Everflux, a constant change in Google search results. So you weren't there sitting by, that 30-day cycle getting excited about these updates. It was literally every morning wake up and see what happened. Shortly after that, we had an index update. And again, an index update is a database update. And that's when the supplemental index came out. I think it was in September 2003. It was basically Google couldn't fit everything into their main index. That was really, really fast. They would actually make a secondary index called the supplemental index, where Google would then put the less important pages, maybe the less page rank scores in those indexes. And if Google couldn't find content in the main index, it would then have a slower response rate and search the secondary index, the supplemental index, for that information. And then all hell broke loose. We had the Florida update. The Florida update happened in November 2003, right before the big holiday shopping season. It made businesses go bust. It was a massive update. It made, for the first time, SEO and Google updates and algorithm changes get into the press in a big way. There was a big question of what Google hit with this Florida update. Many people thought if you over SEO'd or over optimized your website, you were hit by this update. In short, it really taught the SEO community you can't just bank only on Google for rankings. You have to go ahead and diversify your traffic. And that's what people did. In January 2004, we had our first Google update for the 2004 season. It was the Austin update. Again, we went with hurricane naming conventions, so A for Austin. And that happened in, again, January 2004. It basically was another continuation of that Florida update. A bunch of other sites got hit by this update. SEOs were more prepared for it, so it wasn't that big of a splash, but it was definitely a big splash, similar to the Florida update. And then in 2004, again, we had a February update, which was called the Brandy update. And that SEOs took into account latent semantic indexing, LSI, and it seemed like it also had some type of effect with link neighborhoods and anchor text. People who over-optimized in link neighborhoods, the people were just like doing link schemes, as well as really betting on anchor text, over-optimizing your anchor text for your links. Then we had the Sandbox update, one of my favorite updates in the early days, April 2004. And the Sandbox update basically was new sites could not rank anymore. So a tactic where SEOs would just burn their sites to the ground, build up a brand new domain with the same exact old content, and that site would then rank. But Google caught on and said, you know what, we're going to give some time for sites that should have to earn to rank. We're going to give them those new sites some time and see how they do. And as they earn reputation over time, we're going to go ahead and rank them over time. Google always denied the Sandbox update. They never really confirmed the Sandbox update. It was definitely something that was weird. You could see new sites that used to rank really well in the early days. You start a new site after that Sandbox update period, which happened again in April 2004. You could not get that site to rank. And that's why it was called in a sandbox. You had to wait in the sandbox period. Then in 2005, Google released another thing targeting SEOs and link spammers, the no-follow link attribute. It was a way for SEOs or webmasters and bloggers to go ahead and say, hey, Google, don't trust this link. And there was a new attribute that really stayed the same since just a year or two ago. Actually, last year, Google changed the no-follow attribute. So that was in 2019. So a good 15 or so years of no-follow being the way it was. The Allegra update happened in February 2005. It might have been related to no-follow change. We're not sure because maybe now Google's no longer counting certain links and a lot of blogs automatically slapped on those no-follow links. And then in May 2005, we had the Bourbon update. It was supposedly a response to spam and pornography complaints. Then we had the Jagger update in October 2005. Again, in this case, it was about links, trust, and over-optimization. Again, this is not Google saying this. This is what SEOs are thinking because Google really doesn't confirm these updates at this point in time. But Google did talk a little bit about a Big Daddy update. There was some sort of index infrastructure update where Google would actually increase the size of their index, their stored data. That happened in October 2005. And then again, in 2007, we had what's called the Buffy update. Actually, I believe Matt Cutts named this on behalf of Vanessa Fox, who loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And this was a smallish update. He said it kind of impacted only one-word queries. So you wouldn't really notice it unless you're going for the long-tail queries, but one-word queries were impacted. And Matt Cutts confirmed that update at an SES or SMX event, I believe. And then in October 2007, Google went after paid links. It wasn't an official name for it, calling it the paid link updates. It was basically Google going hard after these paid links. It was both manual, specifically Googlers looking at it manually, as well as algorithms going after them. And what you would see is people's page ranks dropped drastically if they got hit by this. Major publications got hit by this, as well as their rankings dropped significantly with this update. Then we're jumping to March 2008, DUI update. There was an index update. It wasn't fully confirmed by Google. It seemed like it was another infrastructure update with Google's index. And then February and March of 2009, we had the Vince update. Again, another algorithm update. In that Vince update, it seemed like brands, big brands won. Google always denied the fact that big brands seem to be winners with these updates. But that was really the first case where SEOs were like, whoa, you got to be a big brand to rank well in Google. After the Vince update, we had the May Day update, and that was in May 2010. That was an algorithm update. It seemed to impact long tail keywords like 3, 4, 5 keyword phrase keywords. With that, Google actually confirmed some of it, saying you really need great content and authoritative content. I think that was the first time Google has used that around an algorithm update. And that was all the way back in 2010, around the May Day update, saying you need great content and authoritative content to rank well. And then we had another index update. It was called the caffeine index, the caffeine update. That was in June 2010. That increased the size, speed, and accuracy of Google's index, amongst other things. So it was actually something they actually released. And they actually gave us a sandbox to test this at. It was pretty interesting. The first time Google said, hey, could you go ahead and test this index for us? And they gave us a special URL to test. And that really was being tested for a couple months or 3 months before it was released. Then we had a little preview. In 2011, January 2011, the month before Panda was updated or was released, we had the Scraper update. The Scraper update only impacted about 2% of queries, according to Google. It specifically targeted sites like scraper sites, content farms, and stuff like that, but it was big. And it was a preview of what was to come next. And here comes Panda. Panda was one of the largest updates we've seen in our history. This impacted about 12%, actually 11.8% of queries. It was big. It was very big. It was an algorithm update. It affected mostly content quality. And what you saw for the first time was that sites that just wrote content just to rank in Google no longer were ranking that well in Google anymore. It put businesses out of business. Those businesses were specifically designed to rank in Google as a way to monetize their websites. With that update, SEOs had to change strategies. They just couldn't generate as many keyword pages as possible, as many long tail pages as possible. They would have to prune their content, build the best types of landing pages as possible, and they would basically no index about half their site. Some would no index 10% of their site, some would no index 80% of the site, some would just tear down their websites completely. I'm not going to go through every single Panda update. There were numerous. I think there were probably close to 50 or so over the years, small, big, and so forth. And they did these up from, 2011 through 2015 or so. It may be even longer. Then after that Panda update, we had the freshness update in November 2011. That's what Google somewhat called it. It was an official update. It affected about 6 to 10% of the queries, and it would basically give fresh content more ability to rank well. And this was around news keywords or breaking stories, and it was a pretty interesting update. Then in January 2012, we had the top heavy, which we called it, Google called it the page layout update, which was an algorithm update that affected 0.7% of queries. And it really targeted sites that had lots of ads in distracting places for your content. After that, the second biggest update in history of SEO, the Penguin update. This might have been the biggest SEO update because SEOs were known about links. And with this, first Google targeted content with Panda, and now, about a year later, Google targeted links with Penguin. Penguin was released in April 2012. It affected only 3% of queries, not the almost 12% of queries for Panda, but it really impacted a lot of SEOs, a lot of the sites that SEOs were working on. It was very, very big. It targeted links for sure. Google's pretty quiet about the update in terms of what it targeted, but it was around links. And there were tons and tons of Penguin updates as well. Penguin updates lasted through 2016, and we'll talk about when that changed a little bit later through the timeline. Then in April of 2012 as well, we had the Pirate update. The Pirate update really went after a small number of sites, specifically targeting sites that basically distributed stolen software or stolen music, pirated content. And then we had the EMD update, the exact match domain update, and that was in September 2012. It was an algorithm update that targeted hit about 0.6% of queries. And it was pretty much low quality exact match domain names, according to Matt Cutts. He said this update impacted low quality exact match domain names. And then in May 2013, we had a domain clustering update, which basically means how many times a specific single domain name could show up on the same search result page. Google did these types of updates frequently, but Google actually announced the domain clustering update back and then. And then we get into these phantom or core updates, whatever you want to call them. They didn't really have an official name back in the old days, so a lot of SEOs were calling them phantom. I was just calling them updates. And the first one we saw was basically in May 2013. It was probably happened more prior to that. They were core updates. Matt Cutts said, no, that's not Penguin, but he wouldn't really talk more about it. And then in June 2013, we had the payday update. Basically, Google went after link schemes, specifically around payday loan types of websites, gambling sites, stuff like that. Websites in that shady area were doing a lot more link techniques that were above and beyond. Google said it only really affected 0.3% of queries, but in certain countries like Turkey and Turkish websites, it affected almost 4% of queries. Then we had the Hummingbird update in August, September time of 2013. It was an algorithm and an infrastructure update. It wasn't really clear exactly what it was, but it was big. And Pigeon, the classic Pigeon update. That was a local update. It was one of the first talked about local algorithm updates we had. And that happened in July 2014. It kind of looked at redefining the distance and radius, a certain location, a certain place, business listing, to the query. And it was very interesting to see how that changed. The local pack kind of changed with that forever. And then Google got into these smaller updates. We had the HTTPS, so is your site on HTTPS, in August 2014, a small ranking boost for being HTTPS. Then we had Mobilegeddon. Mobilegeddon was the mobile-friendly update in April 2015. Is your site mobile-friendly or not? Can Google clearly see if your website renders well on a mobile device? If it doesn't, it's not going to rank well on mobile search. Then we had a quality update in May 2015. Again, maybe another phantom core update. It really targeted quality content, according to what we noticed. And then in July 2015, we had RankBrain. This was one of the cute names behind something that Google released. They announced this in October 2015 and said it actually launched sometime in July 2015. So it was announced after it went live. People said nobody noticed. And it basically changed the way Google understood the query and how it matched to the content on your page. Basically understanding how content's written. Google would have a different interpretation of how content's written, and we have various interpretations of that right now. The latest, at least as of recording this video, was Google BERT. Then we had core ranking updates. I think the first time Google said we're calling this a core ranking update was in January 2016. Many were unconfirmed, many were confirmed. I'm not going to go through every single core unconfirmed core update, but there were many between now and then. I'll cover the more important ones. We had another local algorithm update in September 2016 called the Possum update. Google did not name it that, but we did as SEOs. And then in September 2016 as well, we had Penguin 4.0. Again, we had many Penguin updates, many Panda updates since then, but the last official Penguin update that was confirmed by Google was Penguin 4.0, which basically made Penguin real-time, meaning analyzing stuff in real time. Didn't have to happen over months of cycles and reprocessing links and so forth. And Google would devalue links as opposed to demoting links. By devaluing links, basically Google will say, hey, we're not going to just count these links at all. We're going to ignore them. Whereas demoting your links would be different. Like if you had a bad link from Penguin, it would actually hurt your website and downgrade your websites, whereas opposed to devaluing links, it would just ignore the link completely. In January 2017, we had the interstitials add mobile penalty. It was called the intrusive interstitials mobile penalty. It was launched on January 10, 2017. It was actually pre-announced before that. Google's kind of getting in the mode of pre-announcing algorithm updates here with HTTPS, mobile friendly, intrusive ads, and so forth. And then in February 2017, we had another algorithm update that Google did not confirm, but it seemed to be targeting PBNs, public blog networks, and lots of link schemes. Then we had Fred, good old Fred. March 2017. And then this was a core update. Google would, again, not really confirming it. I seem to think that it actually targeted ad heavy, thin content, low value types of content. But I named it Fred, one of the few algorithm updates I named, simply because Gary from Google made a joke, let's call it Fred, when I asked him what should we call it. And he was joking, but it stuck, and that was the Fred update in March 2017. And then in April 2017, we had the Owl update. Project Owl was called. Google named it Project Owl. This one really targeted fake news content. It looked for offensive or clearly misleading content and tried to downgrade it. It was looking to kind of make the search results show more truth or facts as opposed to fake stuff. And fake news was a big issue back then and still is. Then in December 2017, the Maccabees update, an algorithm update. It was probably a core update. It seemed to impact keyword permutation websites and more templated content sites based on what I saw. But again, Google did not confirm that. And then in 2017, and still through today, 2020, Google announced the mobile first indexing update. And this was basically Google saying, we are going to crawl every single website at some point using our mobile crawler. That means Google's going to crawl your website like a mobile device. This initially was announced in 2017. It took numerous months for it to actually first start rolling out to a small percentage of websites. Now, at the time of SMX Next, we're about 70% of the way there, and hopefully by September of 2020, we will be 100% the way there in terms of Google crawling every single website as a mobile search engine crawler. But we're not sure because of COVID, what's going on. Google said they might go ahead and push this off a little bit. But mobile first indexing is one of the longest updates Google has ever done in terms of how they index content. Then we had the speed announcement. Your site has to be fast. So July 2018, Google's speed update came out. Didn't seem to be a big update. It was kind of small like the HTTPS update, but SEOs took it seriously and they made their sites really, really fast, which made everybody happy. Then we had more core updates, March and April of 2018. Some of them were confirmed, some of them were not. The Medic update, which Google really got upset when I named it that, I think, maybe not. It also upset the SEO, some of the SEO community, because it wasn't only that it impacted medical websites, it affected lots of websites. This was a core algorithm update that affected, from my study that I did, it affected a lot of healthcare related websites, websites around dieting, websites around exercise. So I decided to call it the Medic update. It had a name to it, but it was pretty broad. Google said it was a much broader update than just medical websites and health websites. And that's when we kind of got into this like YMYL, your money, your life schemes, and so forth. Then in September 2018, we had a Google Images update where it looked at the authority of images. So it wasn't just about images in general. Now Google would say, is this image being hosted on an authoritative website? Is it a fresh image? Is it new? And Google would actually give more weight to authoritative and fresh images. Then we had more core updates. One in March 2019, some people nicknamed it the Florida 2 update. March 2019 is when Google said, hey, you know what? Enough with these updates. We're going to call this month, year core update. And that's what Google called this, the March 2019 core update. Then we had another one in June 2019. Then we had a domain name diversity update in June 2019. Only 2 results from the same domain name would rank on the same search result per page for most queries. Not all, but for most. In July 2019, we had the Maverick update after that. And the Maverick update seemed like a core update. Google did not confirm it. And then domain leasing update in August 2019, where Google said, hey, if you are going to head and sell part of your domain name, either a subdomain or a subfolder of your website to spammers or whatever, just because your website and your domain has authority, we're going to go ahead and take action on that. September 2019, the original reporting update. That's when Google News and Google Discover, it actually impacted that. And Google would go ahead and show original news reports higher in the search results than people who copy those original sources. We had another core update in September 2019. It was another big one. And we had Starmageddon, where Google would actually show fewer stars or rich results in their actual search results. It was called Starmageddon, September 2019. Then the BERT update in October 2019, similar to RankBrain. It actually affected about 10% of English queries, and it expanded in December to more languages. It's about 70 different languages. And it basically was similar to RankBrain in that it looked at how queries, how it understood the query, the language of the query, and also about the content on your page. It uses different machine learning and AI techniques to better understand your content. Then the Bedlam update, which is in November 2019. Google actually confirmed this as a local search update a month or two after it actually launched. Again, a local search update in November 2019. And Google said actually it looked at neural matching to better understand local queries. And then in January 2020, we had another core update. And then we had another core update in May 2020. These are two big updates. And then Google announced the page experience update. Not live yet at SMX Next, but they announced it just recently that it will go live in 2021. It's an algorithm update, and it actually incorporated lots of page elements into the ranking algorithm. How much will it be weight? How much will it affect the search results? To be determined still, but it incorporated their Google Core Web Vitals, such as loading time, largest contentful paint, LCP, interactivity, the first input delay, FID, and visual stability, which is cumulative layout shift, does the page shift around as you're looking at it. It also incorporates mobile-friendly, safe browsing, HTTPS, and no intrusive interstitials. So those are the core updates. Those are all the algorithm updates that I thought was important. There was many, many more updates during that time, both unconfirmed, lots of unconfirmed updates. You want to check them all out. I've covered them, as you know, over the past 20 or so years. Okay, so what's Google trying to tell us with these updates? You can see the pattern. Stop spamming us. Stop spamming us. Stop generating low quality content. Stop stealing content. Stop doing these things that are just trying to get into our index to go ahead and monetize your users to click somewhere else, to click on ads, to buy something they don't want to buy. Build great content that we want to rank. The core updates are really all these updates. You see these core updates, the Google Quality Raters guidelines. Everything Google's communicating these days is about building better websites. Easier said than done, but how could you build a better website? How could you make your website more engaging for users? How could you make your website that's something that they want to recommend it to their friends? How could you make it so that your website, when somebody's reading it for health concerns or financial concerns, that they actually trust it when they're reading it? You want to build better websites, more engaging websites. You want your websites to be faster. You want your websites to make happier people after they look at it. And as John Mueller would say, you want your website to be awesome. So stop chasing those algorithms. And instead of that, be where the algorithms want to be before they are updated. Be one step ahead or two steps ahead of the algorithm. And how do you do that? By building awesome, great websites for your users. Thank you. I'm Barry Schwartz, and I hope you enjoy SMX Next.